Why don't we readily do that? I mean, when I
Well,
say...
because you're asking me to go naked. I mean, I don't know whether you're somebody I want to go naked
when I say
from.
to somebody, tell me about yourself, they'll typically tell me about their job, how many kids they
Or
have.
the credentials, yes, because
Exactly.
that's facts.
Is that protectionism? Is that the
Well,
way
don't
we
you
keep
do that?
ourselves
Do
from
you
being
not ever do
vulnerable?
that?
Well, what's interesting is people would say, in one-on-one conversation, it is much more difficult for me to tell my story. And people are often, how are you so honest in your books? This is nobody else in the room. That's how I'm honest with my books. You're not there.
That's exactly. Every writer I ever knew, especially every memoirist or autobiographical, will say the same thing. Absolutely. And also, I think the telling of stories, or at least for me, maybe I'm now revealing more than I should, but the telling of the story, of your own story, allows you to understand some things that you would not have understood otherwise. You're almost telling it to yourself first before you tell it to other people.
Yeah.
It's a way, and you make the point in one of the things you do, that there's so much stuff that happens in life, none of it is really memorable. I mean, it's all a blur, right? It's one fact, you got up, you went to work, it didn't matter. It's when you build a story around it, and it's almost the way you harvest your past, so to speak.
Yeah.
You go through the orchard and pick up the things that matter.
The mind tends to look back on our history and only remember the elements of story.
That's right.
The things that happen that are either our ambitions, our conflicts, our resolutions. And the best definition I've ever heard for story is that it's a sense-making device.
It is a sense-making. It's an order-making, I really think.
Yeah.
It's a way you make order. But I think the mind, with all due respect, the mind only remembers the thing that somehow the emotion or the heart has already flagged. So to speak, and then the mind goes back and picks it up and brings it out into conscious existence. There's an interesting interplay where story is concerned between mind and heart. Well, I guess where religion is concerned too. But there's a real, the heart has to dwell in the story or it's not worth coughing out, and the mind sort of deletes it.
What do you mean by that, the heart has to dwell in the story?
The emotion has to have occupied part of the event. For it to be a story. The good stories, the stories that live, the stories that will ring true, are the ones where the heart has already dwelled first and flagged it, and then the mind lifts it out, which is part of why it's hard to give it away, because I can tell you a factual story, and even then I've revealed myself by the facts I chose, to tell, and how I arranged them, so it is an order-making thing. But there are various levels that get farther and farther in. Isn't that true?
Yeah, oh, absolutely.
And the nearer in you come, the more vulnerable you are, but the more beautiful usually the stories are, because that's when the emotion comes out and lets you see who really lives in there.